So we want to kick the show off this week with a great interview that we saw with Samson Dauda. And I thought it was a phenomenal interview.
This memory has always kind of haunted me, and I've always used it, especially when I'm in the gym, because I know sometimes Mel will see me in the gym and I'll doing a set and I'll have tears come out of my eye when I'm doing a set. And she always goes like, when you're in the gym, you go to a really dark place. And I'm like, I know. And she goes, you really go to a dark place. And I could see it. So, when I remember the memory I had with my dad when I first moved out, the day I moved out of my house because he wasn't happy about Rico in a big fight. And I remember him saying to me, you know what, if you had a son like you, would you ever be proud of him? And I kind of like, okay, thank you. And I left. And we didn't speak for years after that. It was.
Wow.
I'd never heard Samson speak before, and I had a lot of preconceptions of who Samson was and what he was all about. But this interview totally changed my mind because straight off the bat, he was a very well spoken. I thought he had a level of James Earl Jones tenor to his voice. I could see the charisma that was just dripping off this guy. And if there ever was an heir apparent to the Olympia throne, I think Samson really has it all. And so what did you think of this interview anyway?
Yeah. Kudos to Samson. It was a great interview, and people really need to go watch it. Samson's he's got a very resonant voice, very easy on the ear. And he's had some internal struggles, some of it's sort of cultural. So there's some really good stuff and definitely worth a watch.
He definitely came across to me as this lovable teddy bear that was quite a gentle giant and had this great backstory with the battles of his immigration from Nigeria, the battles with the father, not wanting him to do bodybuilding at all, this cultural clash that he had with being an immigrant in a new country, and also just as a newbie coming into the bodybuilding from the background of rugby. And he has this shyness and insecurity that kind of translates into an identifiable vulnerability to many people, I think. And I really liked how he talked about the tall poppy syndrome in between USA and UK, particularly with the cultural identification with bodybuilding, because it was much the same within Australia, I think, because I know the Australian public for many years, especially when we were coming up in the game, were very critical of bodybuilding and bodybuilders especially. You get a lot of criticism from people who just didn't understand it. And they're always trying to pull you down because you're the representation and advertisement for the sport at the end of the day, which Samson also said was the same in England, but it's completely the opposite in America, where people are full of praise. You'll get random comments and kindness from strangers, and people are very supportive. So was there anything else that you thought was really interesting about Samson's discussion there with Honey?
Yeah, I really like that discussion relating to tall poppy. Well, it is tall poppy. He didn't call it that, but it's just the way that in the UK, if you want to achieve something, you just sort of get dragged down. And you and I have spoken about that in Australia. That's been going on for years. But I've noticed that. I've been to America twice now, and they just revere people that want to achieve.
What I also found refreshing was that Samson's discussion when they were talking about what training that he settled on. And I think he's probably the first Brit in the history since Dorian who doesn't do Dorian style training. He quite mentioned that it didn't work for him, but he kept confusing the terms of HIT and volume. Did you notice that as well? He was going, yeah, I like HIT training and I do a lot of volume. And I thought it was confusing. Hani rambled there for a while as well.
That's right.
Because I think that what Samson wanted to say is that he trains with intensity, but he uses volume.
So when I first started, I was using different training methods because I was always, you're reading about different guys recommending different things, high intensity, high volume. I'll try training 3 times a week, 1 time a week, every day. I'll try all the different styles and techniques I can just to see which one works. So obviously,
what did you feel was the most beneficial for you when you said what you landed on? I think you hit a good point there. What did you feel was the best? Was it more high volume? Was it more HIT?
It was more the high HIT and high volume. That for me, it almost replicated what I was doing in rugby, where it was very explosive, very high intensity, and then a short break, and then back at it again, and then short break. Where throughout the whole session, your heart is literally pounding, and you feel like you're gonna die.
So it's more high volume.
So for me, that it was just my bread and butter. That just worked so great for me.
But one of the elephants in the room, I think, with the whole interview was the non-mention of Milos as the coach, because I think that Ernie Rambod even gave him an opportunity because he said, who was a person that was very inspiring or instrumental in your rise to fame and success in bodybuilding? And he completely bypassed the Milos reference and went to some other guy that I've never even heard of before. What did you think about him not mentioning Millis at all?
Yeah, it was interesting. I thought they would have discussed it. You know, there was a lot of mention of Marlena, his wife, and how she's been so supportive. So it should have segued into a little bit of discussion with Milos. I think Milos was
cleared the air a little bit. I think he
would.
did, and it would have also just kind of given his side of the story, because all I've heard is Milos, and Milos I think has been quite strategic in how he's also played this whole dispute between this love triangle of Samson, his wife, and Milos, because when you're coaching somebody at this level, there's obviously this kind of closeness in this relationship that develops over time. But Samson seems to be like, I think, the pig in the middle a little bit, because he came across to me as a very kind of genuine and warm-hearted guy. But I have a feeling, and this is just me throwing it out there, that the wife is almost like this Lady Macbeth operating in the background. And if anyone was kind of Machiavellian and scheming and probably using Samson as a little bit of a pawn, it would be her. And this is the difficult thing when you get a sudden rise to power. You have people pulling you in all these different directions. So because everyone sees that their opportunity, that you're now their cash cow. Yeah. And all some of these people see at the end of the day is dollar signs. And unfortunately, the victim is always the person who's the blunt instrument in the middle.
Yeah, it was interesting though. I mean, Milos has always considered them as like family. He felt like really close to them. And you know, that expression, hashtag this is bodybuilding, Milos started. And that was in reference to Samson, you know, with his incredible aesthetics, his relatively small waist for such a big man. And so Milos was very, very close to Samson, and I thought he was quite close to Marlena, but there was something, yeah, you could be right. It could be, she might have felt a little bit.
Well, remember that example with William Bonner that we talked about last week? When you've got some of these high-level coaches working with you, they take a big cut of your prize winnings. And if you can eliminate that middleman and do it yourself, why not cut that extra hand that you're feeding out of the equation? But I found that it was quite telling also, because they were both, Marlena and Samson, beginners to this whole competitive bodybuilding thing. And gave away what a fucking scam this professional gurus industry is. Because how did Marlena and Samson learn about all this bodybuilding prep stuff and peaking somebody? From watching YouTube videos and just piecing it together on the internet. You know, there's no high level secrets that these guys know behind the scenes, that they've suddenly come across this, you know, secret formula that peaks people. And at the end of the day, even just a ranked beginner like her was able to put it together and peak him probably better than Milos has in the last couple of shows.
Well, we spoke last week about experience, and really, once you you can become your own guru. You know your body better than anyone else. And if you've got someone so close to you like Marlena, obviously Marlena and Samson seem to be a very tight unit. That's going to be a pretty unbeatable combination. But I think Milos would have been good for Samson with the posing, because we know Milos is a bit OCD when it comes to posing, but I've seen the way he coaches posing, and his attention to detail is fantastic. And I'm a posing coach myself, so I look at I remember the way he helped Luke Sandow with his posing before he passed, unfortunately. But going back to that interview, I think one of the really refreshing parts of this, the way Samson was growing up, had to be so humble, didn't he? Remember, he was talking about being humble. His father didn't like it. Something within the family that if you sort of bragged about your success, that was frowned upon. I think that might have been a cultural thing. And so Samson had a real battle and struggle, didn't he, with taking pride in his achievement, and from there wanting to pursue greatness. I think that was really something that came through, and finally sort of realized that, yeah, it's okay, even though one of the 7 deadly sins is pride, isn't it? I finally came to realize that it's okay to have pride in your achievements and then take it from there. But there was something going on with his father really prevented him from really enjoying success and enjoying achievement. What did you think about that?
Yeah, I think it's only natural that, you know, immigrants, when they come to a new country, struggle so much to establish themselves. And when they see their son or their children invest in something so unpredictable and something they've never come across in terms of bodybuilding before, I could see how you definitely wouldn't be on board if you were that older kind of immigrant mentality. No, they want their children to get an education and become a doctor and become something, make something of the world. And bodybuilding is definitely such a risky proposition that I don't see how he could have been on board with it. What I did also find quite funny about the interview was, despite Samson's gargantuan presence, is how scared he was in different situations. Like when he got in the taxi cab and he thought the taxi driver was up to no good, he was kind of fearful for his life. And
late. So eventually this taxi pulled up, and this was the first time where it was this really, really bad looking taxi. And it pulled up, and there was this really big dude in there, this chubby dude in there. And I looked at this taxi, and I looked in there, and I was like, we're about to go missing. I remember calling Mike, and I'm like, dude, is this taxi? He was like, yeah. He was like, I was like, yeah. I was like, okay, look, I'm gonna send you my position. I'm gonna put it on the phone. Call me back in about half an hour. If you don't pick up the phone, send for help. It was one of those, like, I'm like, I don't know. I'm like, this is just really, really like, whoa, you know. So
he says he didn't kind of like getting it twice because he wasn't confident of the outcome, and he's just such a cold that you think the guy would be always so confident in any situation. But it shows that even when you have mountains and mountains of muscle on top of you, you still have those innate insecurities that still make you fearful in confrontation. One thing I did sort of touch on when I listened to the interview was the great rapport that Honey Rambod had with Samson.
Oh, yeah.
And I also started to think, is there going to be a future link up and collaboration between these two? Because if there's anyone that could take Samson to the promised land, it would definitely be Honey, wouldn't it?
Oh, they just had such a great chemistry just in the interview. They really hit it off. So I thought to myself, well, Honey, he could have 1, 2, 3, couldn't he? Derek, Hardy, and Samson. So that would be what combo? No, just needs to, pull Nick Walker away from Matt Jansen. Then you have nearly a poker handful of these Olympia champions. But yeah, definitely there was a great chemistry, and I also like the way Samson spoke about how, with the current crop of pros, they're backstage, the guys are all really, really supportive of each other and friendly. They're not sort of narked as they were back in the Flex Wheeler days, where they were sort of angry and going to battle and almost like enemies against the others. It was going back to the Frank Zane days that I spoke about earlier, where it was more about community and the camaraderie. And I think that was quite refreshing. I really thought that was great. So I can't imagine Samson would be a troller online. And I think it's really nice to see that that's the case. And Samson spoke about the fact that there's no point being aggro backstage when at the end of the day, it's the judge that makes the decision as to who's going to win the show. So what's the point of being aggro with your fellow competitors? You might as well just be friendly and enjoy. And that's always been my experience as a competitive bodybuilder myself.
Yeah, like I said, it was a great interview, and it totally changed my preconceptions and opinions of Samson. I think he's a gentleman of the sport. Fantastic physique, and if anybody has the potential to take it all the way, it'll definitely be him. And I wish him the best of luck in the future. And yeah, let's see if he can convert those question marks into exclamation marks and become the next best big thing. And what better name than fucking Samson, huh? Like, if you wrote a fiction novel and called your main character Samson as it pertains to strength and bodybuilding, people would go, "Oh, that's a cliched and hackney," but he's living up to the name anyway. But let's hope. Also, you got to remember what happened to the biblical Samson. What was his downfall?
Yeah, well, it was the
woman operating in the background, the scheming Machiavellian.
That's right. Yeah, Delilah. That was the thing. Yeah, that was. But hopefully, whether it's Delilah or Marlena, no, I think they're a good team. They're going to do well together. You've just got to dial that seal skin back. What do you think he could do to bring that in? What do you think he needs to do?
Obviously, die harder and let the chips fall where they may. I think Millis was always a little bit indicative that Samson didn't go full bore with a lot of his contest preparations. Millis liked him to suffer, I think. Yeah. But some of these new school guys, they're just not willing to go to the territory just to get them to the next level sometime. And I think that's probably, like you said, an experience thing over time. Let's see how it pans out. But once he locks it in, it's game over for everybody else. Those current midgets that are cramping his style in in the open division, they've got not a chance once he locks it in. So even from a rate, it's the same.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's move on to the next topic, because we're going to go now from Samson to Sam Sulek. And again, another guy that I had a lot of preconceptions and probably misjudgments about. I was very critical of the guy in the past because he seemed to represent everything that I dislike about the current iteration of the sport and the social media aspect of these kids basically taking on this undeserved fame without actually establishing themselves with any bona fides or credentials in the sport. In other words, they're doing nothing and getting all this money and fame, which just doesn't sit well with me. Probably yourself, but as we've always sort of thought that you've got to earn your dues and pay it with effort before something actually you get recognized for it. And
because when I was younger, I did gymnastics. So all the stuff where you're like swinging around the bar, doing stuff on that spring floor, doing flips.
Yeah.
Like the vault, all sorts of stuff like that. I think that was cool. But the people who were really good at that, like they were in a different league than the team that I was on.
what did you think about the bid? Let's hear your thoughts first.
Yeah, well, I prejudged Sam. I definitely prejudged Sam early on. And I think it was mainly because when I sort of saw him rise to fame, it was while he was eating a big bowl of cereal and a 1 or 2 liters of choc milk. He was eating that sort of stuff and touting that as long as it fits in your macros, you're okay to go. And so, gets a cereal after training and all that sort of thing. And then next thing you know, he takes his shirt off and he's covered in chancres. Looked like the old Diner Bowl chancres from back in the 70s. So he's such a young guy in his early 20s. I thought, oh boy, this is a train wreck in the making here. But having watched the video, I definitely had more of a respect for him because he's just a young guy who wants to have fun, take what he wants and share the journey. And like Lee Preet said, if you don't like it, don't watch it. So no point prejudging him.
Yeah, if fucking Lee Preet, he's definitely hitched his wagon to Sam Sulek's fame, I thought, because Lee's always been so hypercritical of people that have done very similar to Sam in the past. I remember he was very scathing towards Boston Lloyd and sort of saying, why are you taking fucking PEDs if you're not competing and you're just wasting your time and blah, blah, blah. And now Lee has again seen the fame that Sam represents and sees the opportunity of hitching his name to Sam's. Lee's a little bit hypocritical, I think. So yeah, fuck Lee Preet in this instance, but sorry, go on.
Yeah, and what came through though in the documentary is that he's got a bit of a laissez-faire sort of attitude, carefree attitude, a bit like Van Moog, and almost a bit like Rich Piana to a degree, in just wanting to have a lot of fun. But at the same time, the guy is incredibly talented in what he does. I didn't know that he was a national diver. Did you? I mean, what a unbelievable.
Yeah, well, this is some of the things that the documentary reveals about Sam Sulek that I wasn't quite sure before. Because Sam uploads with such, daily frequency and he's not flashy with his social media, so it's not easy to kind of go back through his archives and find out what he's all about. And I just don't have the time to dig into his content like a lot of other people have. But he's definitely got this real hardworking pedigree in sports as well. He does have the diving and the swimming background, so he knows how to commit to things, and he's definitely done that with bodybuilding. And I like how he's also, you got to give the guy credit for shunning the limelight to an extent. He's not flashy with his social media. He's not materialistic in buying cars and houses.
No, not at all.
He doesn't have any ego attached to himself at all. You can't help but gravitate and respect the guy. He has that old school mentality where he loves the old iron game, and it's a lot of these newer guys, they probably couldn't list more than 3 fucking people of who the old school stars were. But Sam loves all the pumping iron, Lee Priest, the 90s. Yeah, I love how he shares his journey. He's just so intelligent and humble.
Multifaceted guy. He's a hyper responder to just training in general. So he decided to use some, PEDs. Well, so be it. Obviously he did respond very well to those. But one of the things that I was impressed with, that he actually got a degree in mechanical engineering.
Yeah, that's it. He spends his summers painting the city streets, just doing fucking getting in the weeds. And I was wrong. I was wrong about the guy. I did it.
No, he's very, very, very talented individual. Like I said, the genetics out of box. I mean, he's got a sensational proportions. I think he's got a tremendous physique and could do very well in the sport. So
I was going to talk about that. What do you think of his actual future potential? Because this is one thing, you can be a gym bodybuilder, you can put on social media, but when you're standing next to the Samson Daudas and the Derek Lunsford itself world and the Hardy Shabans, how's he going to compare once he throws down and jumps into a contest?
Well, I think he could do quite well. It'll take him some time because he, even though he's got a fair bit of muscle on him, it's going to take a while for that muscle to sort of like mature and settle, if you like, as he brings himself into, more of a contest condition. We don't know quite what it look like, but he seems to stay very, very lean. He seems to be one of those guys that puts on body fat equally around the whole body, which is what you need to be a great bodybuilder. You don't want to sort of have a propensity to put it on one particular area. So he has an even distribution of body fat, and he's really not carrying much body fat at the moment anyway, but he's got a really aesthetically pleasing physique, can pull a bit of a vacuum already. And I think it's going to be interesting to watch for sure.
I'm surprised Honey Rambot hasn't reached out to Sam because, but that would be a collaboration. If he could, if Honey Rambot wants to be known as the pro creator, what better fucking person to take pro than Sam Sulek? Show us what you've got, Honey. But by the same vein, I'm also amazed that George Farah hasn't stepped into the breach and
that's right.
And the next Olympia competitor this by 2025. Again, another thing that happened, that was quite timely because this video has been out for a few weeks now and it's got a lot of attention. But one thing that's definitely captured the eyeballs of the bodybuilding public this week is this whole furor over Sam telling Fuad Abiad to get fucked and sticking slave wages contract up his ass because what a debacle, paying this kid who's worth millions just from his YouTube presence alone, measly $500 a week.
Is that all it was,
company? And it just shows you what a scumbag, what Fuad Abiad's all about. And I called this guy again from the start. I don't know, I just have intuition about these people. Maybe that's my fucking talent more, but
he's at a league, doesn't he now?
Every fucking high level athlete, that's where
3 or 4. Didn't we count 3 or 4 athletes that have departed?
Remember back in the days with Weider and muscular development, a contract with a major company was such a coveted thing, and these guys were making millions of dollars from Muscle Tech and
Muscle Tech. That's huge.
You would never want to leave a Weider contract. It would be like worse than death. But guys can't wait to jump ship on Fuad because he's just a piece of shit. And he just doesn't know how to run a business and how to manage athletes by the sounds of things. And his podcast fucking sucks. Like, again, he's a guy that used Luke Sando basically to get some fame because Luke was the heart and soul and backbone. That's right.
Bodybuilding and bollocks. That's right. It was a
I really love Luke's presence on that show. And
I was a big fan of Luke Sando for sure.
Yeah. So fuck Fuad, and I wish Sam again all the best, like I did with Samson. I hope he goes from strength to strength as well.
Just quickly, one point there. How we spoke about, competitors, they need to have a guru coach that is dubious because sometimes people know themselves better than anyone else. But potentially, though, if Sam wants to do bodybuilding, I think he could benefit from coach, someone that's well-rounded and motivating, like you say, like Arnie. So he might be someone that could benefit. So
I think especially in Sam's case, because everyone's writing him off as the next bodybuilding disaster to die early, and I kind of try for myself as well. He needs probably someone like a Cedo or like Honey Ram. I'm going to introduce more the element of health into the equation because Sam, I think, maybe a little bit reckless with the way he approaches the diet because when you're 21, you're Griffin invincible and anything.
I found that a bit off-putting, yeah.
Yeah, that's right. And also kind of sends the wrong message to all the kids that also follow. That you can, but if we ourselves forget years back, knowing what we know now about health, nutrition, and diet, it's a lot of things that probably you and I would both do differently. And that definitely eating the bowls of cereal and going down that carb dead end is definitely one of them. So hopefully somebody steers the kid in the right direction. Yeah. And best wishes to him and all the deserved success because he's not indulgent. He hasn't even upgraded that fucking old car that he drives around.
No.
He just seems so honest. Yeah, that's
Toyota Camry. Him and his brother got his Toyota Camry each, and he can't move on from that.
Yeah,
but he himself has said he's he finds himself to be a minimalist, which is a very mature approach for a young man, isn't it?
100%. Yeah. No, my estimation of Sam is just going through the roof. So,
Well, good on
yeah. All right, let's just switch gears a little bit. We found a great video introducing one of the leading talking heads in the carnivore space, which is Bart. Hey, and he did a really interesting video this week because it was one of his regular takedowns, in this case of Lane Norton. And he's done a few now of Lane because he particularly finds Lane, as we do, very distasteful. But Lane recently went on the excellent Modern Wisdom podcast. And if you haven't checked that out, Chris Williamson, the guy that hosts, is a very well-spoken Brit. And I've been following Chris's show now almost since its inception. And I used to think, why is this guy not popular? Because he's brilliant. And if there's anyone that I want to model my speaking style and my presentation sense on it, it's basically Chris Williams, because he's so well-spoken. But Norton went on there recently because he's the media go-to guy these days, appearing on Rogan and whatnot. But Kay basically exposes this guy for the know-nothing, almost fraud that he is in terms of his academic credentials. What did you think about this one, Craig?
The requirement for fibre in the human diet is not 1 single gram ever. There is no evidence suggesting saturated fat is in any way deleterious to health outcomes in humans over any period of time. Lane Norton. Rubbish. Complete rubbish. An imbecile and Dunning-Kruger on feet. You are incompetent to take a position. Your opinion is worthless and disingenuous at best. It's downright dishonest. So very, very brave that you are too afraid to front up for a live debate concerning any topic.
Well, I'm definitely a fan of Bart Kay. I mean, wow, the way he pieces together these takedowns is really very interesting and funny, quite funny. The air of arrogance about him, but confidence too, because he can back up every single claim that he said with science. And with Lane, unfortunately, is very one-eyed, and he's got lots of opinions about how to diet, but he basically gets stuck in one modality. And I suppose Bart Kay's the same with the carnivore approach, but at least some of the things that Bart says are hard to argue with, very hard to argue with. But unfortunately, one of the things that I've become disenfranchised with in terms of Lane is that Lane now, even though he's got a degree in nutritional science, with the whole fits in your macro approach to losing fat and gaining muscle, he's just become a bitch, if you want to use a better word, with anyone who's anything different to what he thinks about nutrition and science.
Because Lane's whole social media shtick, which has basically catapulted him to social media fame, is responding and taking down the videos of others. However, he won't try and do that with Bart, because Bart is actually experienced in science. He has a ton of credentials behind him. He's published a lot more academic papers than Lane. He's taught, universities, etc. And Bart is also super contrarian, but he has shit to back it up. And he's also extended basically the offer to Lane to come on and debate him many times. And Lane, who never backs down from an opportunity for debating or involving in conversation with somebody that he considers lesser in intelligence, won't fucking get into the weeds with Bart. And he just sort of writes it off as because Bart is always doing ad hominems and is not a serious person to debate with.
I think one of the things, Sean, that with Lane is that I've given up on his content because he doesn't offer me anything that I can learn from. There's just nothing new. All he just keeps doing is, like I said, and you said, is bagging out others. So but give me something, Lane, that I can use in my daily approach to my nutrition and training or whatever, that's new or interesting or that I can take on board.
It's like the Fauci of the fitness industry, he's always guessed them saying, you got to trust the science, But Lane, you don't know the fucking science. And this whole video and the many others that Bart has done about Lane constantly exposes that Lane's knowledge is completely lacking in all the areas that he talks about. And we just never will see a response from Lane, because the best way that Lane dismisses the attacks is to ignore it. And I'm the whole concept with fiber. With your whole carnivore diet, because we're always fed into the importance of fiber and science, because this fiber in the gut, gut microbiome is essential, and fiber is the thing to do that. In the words of Paul Mason, eating fiber is like adding cars to a traffic jam. And
Paul
I
Mason, by
found-
the way, sorry to interrupt you, but he's a colorectal surgeon. So he sees what comes out of people and the damage that the high carbohydrate, highly refined carbohydrate diet caused, but also you think he'd know something about fiber, wouldn't you? And so this guy's carnivore himself, a colorectal surgeon. So that says something, doesn't it? I find that fascinating, actually. So he's a good one to refer to, I think.
Absolutely. How did you feel when you eliminated carb fiber from your diet anyway?
Well, I always thought it was essential. I thought I needed to, do a nice crap, but I found
Fiber hive, Metamucil.
But what I found was when I start to increase any sort of carbohydrate and fiber, my stools become messy and then I'm going to the toilet more often. But with a carnivore diet, clean as a whistle. It's fantastic. I mean, it's a bit of an unsavory topic, Sean, but it is interesting though, because if you can do a good crap every morning and it's not messy and all the rest, you feel good.
No need to get embarrassed, right? Everybody poos, but like at the end of the day, like you said, we don't get the gut discomfort. There's no bloat.
No.
There's no once when you're on a carnivore diet. I never feel the need to fart. Like you said, the shit's
No.
normally clean. There's not into the bowl or anything else for that.
I know.
No,
Less flatulence, use less toilet paper, and it's definitely and you don't, like I say, you don't need to go as often. There's no constipation. I mean, what all this stuff about fiberlize, Dave Palumbo's fiberlize. You got to take fiberlize, otherwise you get constipated. I don't know anyone that got constipated. I didn't experience any constipation on a carnivore diet.
hell no. Yeah.
So, and the thing that Bart alludes to is that, and others, people get worried, I'm not going to the toilet, I'm bound to. No, if you're strict carnivore, you're basically assimilating all the nutrients in your food. So you don't actually have to go as often. So just
No, you will just
short.
immediately, but that's a transitory stage where your body's trying to make the switch from, the foods that it was once used to, this overly processed diet and fruits and vegetables, which basically jam up the works. But once the body works things out, then the diarrhea, which is almost like the body's kind of cleansing and cathartic action in a way, it dries up and you don't ever get that again. And, the big one of the carnivore diet is no skid marks in the underpants at the end of the day.
No. Just in line with that, one quick tip though, people need to know that if they are going to try a carnivore diet, they don't want to add too many sort of fats to their diet, like when they're cooking, like with olive oils and butters, because sometimes that excess of liquid fat you get add more to the food that to the fat that you've got in your steak anyway, and so on, an egg, that can sometimes make it go a bit loose. So you don't need to be adding copious amounts of fat and create a bit of diarrhea. So just be mindful of that and just enjoy the whole foods, just enjoy the steaks, the eggs as they are, and you'll be totally fine.
Yeah, anyone that always starts the carnivore diet, I always just sort of say, keep it absolutely simple and minimalist, right? Because that's what was designed. Meat and eggs, particularly red meat. I wouldn't even put eggs in at the beginning. I would reintroduce eggs in later in the game. Like basically keep it red meat and water. And then gradually reintroduce some eggs, see how they fit with it as well. Then add some butter after that. But, it's a slowly step-by-step approach. So, yeah. Anyway, on the carnivore topic as well, I saw this one. Again, it's a little bit older, but I thought it's topical because it encapsulates a lot of videos along the same theme, which are now making the rounds on the internet. And that's at Lily Kane's I Quit Carnivore. Now, one of the problems that I've had with carnivore and reasons why I backed off doing carnivore content, even though it was really popular, if you go back and check some of my original carnivore videos, they're the ones that are most enduring in terms of hits and comments. But I leaned away from it because I found the whole carnivore content production a little bit disingenuous for these people that have entire fucking channels and shticks around the concept of eat meat and drink water. Now, I don't know how that warrants having a whole channel of numerous videos that you can expound on that topic, but I think, where do we draw the line anyway? And it just gets boring, tiring, and repetitive, and I don't see why you need to keep harping on about it. It's talk about beating a dead horse. But these latest spate of videos, again, is attracting attention on now people sort of saying they're quitting the carnivore diet. So what do you think of Lily's video?
Yeah, it's actually worth watching for anyone that's trialed a carnivore approach, because she doesn't back thing initially saying I was carnivore, but in the end it was a 25-minute round the world discussion where we find that she pulled back because she had an itchy scalp, she had some dandruff issues. She was blaming that on the food that she was eating in terms of the meat and eggs and all the rest of it. But really, I think most of her stress that was worrying so much about the dandruff and the itchy scalp, I think the stress was causing the problem more than anything. But she did eventually, after 25 minutes, come around full circle and say that she's carnivore-ish. She's carnivore-ish. She likes meat-based diet. She's found that it's the ultimate elimination diet. She's on the constant, she feels the constant need to reintroduce foods back in, like fruit and so on. And this is one interesting thing that I found from this video, if nothing else. She introduced a measly 150 grams of carbohydrates per day back into a diet for 6 weeks or something, just to see how she'd go. And they were pretty clean carbs too. It was just from a bit of fruit, rice, sweet potato, things like that. And she immediately started to have inflammation. So I thought that was very interesting indeed. So that's something where, this is what we talked about before, carnivore being the ultimate elimination diet. If you just stick to red meat, you can basically solve a lot of your problems and then start to reintroduce food back in. But she basically did reintroduce the foods and then realized that she needed to go back to meat-based. So at the end of the day, it was 25 minutes of quite funny in some of her candor, but she ended up coming back to carnivore-ish diet.
Funny is an interesting way to say cringe. But I think with the carnivore diet, you need to decide your own level of investment in it at the end of the day. And carnivore, I think, is almost like a spectrum that you can operate on. Because if you want to be totally aimed more at getting rid of any pathologies or health problems, you need to be ultra strict. And then you can gradually reintroduce foods after a period of time to see how you respond to them. But what I find, and this is including the experience of myself, is that once you do start to reintroduce certain carbohydrate foods, you get a backlash sometimes, which is worse than if you'd never introduced them in the first place. And you've got to make that decision of whether you just stay carnivore forever and enjoy the optimal health benefits that it brings, or if that, you just want to bring back carbs intermittently and deal with any inflammation or any health problems that you have.
I think that approach is sensible. And, something that I've done is I'm sort of keto carnivore, predominantly carnivore, but probably 80-20. Just occasionally some clean carbs on the weekend as a bit of a treat, maybe to fuel your leg workout the next day or something. I don't know. But
you don't need carbs to fuel, right?
No, you don't.
Yeah, I think the only reason why you need carbs when you're doing bodybuilding is to fill the look at the muscles out.
Yeah.
Well, obviously, an interview that I had with Robert Sykes says that he does stuff with fat. I've never really experimented with a predominantly fat-driven carnivore approach. It's something probably I'll try in the future. But, obviously, it's undeniable that carbs definitely has a place in bodybuilding. Otherwise, insulin wouldn't be such a popular drug and such an anabolic drug as well if it didn't have some interaction with the importance of carbs in bodybuilding. So, again, you've got to decide your own level of investment and see how it works for you. But if you do have any health problems, carnivore is the best way to steer, and that's undeniable in my opinion, having been someone that's battled with health complications and problems their whole life.
Yeah, that's right. And the one thing that I've harkened on about quite a period of time is just when I do go stricter with carnivore, more sort of like maybe 90-10 carnivore keto, just the improvement to my sleep is phenomenal. Some people say that carnivore disrupts their sleep, but I have so much more extra REM sleep as tracked by my phone. It's quite surprising. So
with the sleep issue as well, I think it's almost like the shits issue, because people complain that they're not shitting as regular and that they're not producing as much content in the bowl at the end of the experience. However, it's almost like that with sleep. When I eat lots of carbs and have a lot of processed foods in my diet, I find I might need a solid 8 hours just to recover. However, when I'm doing carnivore, I might only need 5 or 6 hours and I'll feel way more fully rested. And people would sort of say, well, you're not getting enough sleep because you're not getting your 8. But hang on, my body only needs 5 or 6.
That's right. You've hit on a really good point there, Sean. I think, when you've got all these bad foods in your diet, you sort of need that 8 hours for your body to process it all. So you could
It's like hard ride on the piss. You know, when you fucking, if you, not that I have, but I can imagine, like, I always see people that when they go out and get drunk and hammered, they always wake up the next day and they look like they haven't slept at all, even though they've been in bed for 10 hours. And, you know, and now you won't get up at 1 p.m. in the afternoon. Well, you know, because the body is just kind of saying, fuck, we need to shut down while we process this poison.
I mean, sometimes I'm, you know, late to bed with my job and getting up early, and I'm only getting 6 hours, but I'm getting, you know, somewhere between 3 and 4 of those hours is REM sleep, according to, you know, my sleep tracker. So, that's quality sleep, and I'm feeling good. So I think it's all about quality rather than quantity, and certainly the carnivore diet can help improve the quality of sleep. Definitely, and it might be that you could be right. You might need less. I don't much.
Yeah, I don't know what. I don't care what the science again says at the end of the day. I've hit upon a winning strategy that's worked well in my life, as have many other anecdotal reports, and we can't dismiss the plethora of people, you know, on the internet and otherwise. I know that there's this spurious intention of some of these people just to monetize the whole carnivore equation and cash in on the fame of being a little bit contrarian and offering people, again, a almost cult-like path and a nutritional, which has kind of wrecked our lives with this standard American or standard Western diet. But, you know, at the end of the day, just experiment yourself and see what works for you, because you might be pleasantly surprised if you just give it 30 to 90 days. Let's move on to the next topic now. With Behrooz Tabani's narrow win over Nate Yasher at Flex Pro just last week. That was in Italy. So we've got doing the European tour.
That was the Italian pro. That's right, Flex Pro in Italy.
Yeah, like I didn't really know this guy at first because a lot of these Iranian guys, and apparently there's so many of them who just can't get into the West for whatever visa problems that they have. And there's a whole hidden bunch of these guys that if they ever gradually infiltrate the pro scene, they're going to do some real damage. But just Behrooz, he's been around for quite a while once I dug up his name. He's been waiting the wings there, and he's finally starting to make a bit of an impact.
Yeah, he is, and I am a fan of his physique for sure. It's just tremendous proportions. He gets in incredible conditioning. His quads were probably a bit of an issue 2 years ago, but he's worked very, very hard. He's brought them up. From the backside, his glutes and hamstrings are freaky. The striations are amazing. Good insertions. The lower lats haven't disappeared like some of these pros. He's let, you know, sink right down close to his hips, but he's got great proportions. His waist is pretty small. His problem is his posing. He's a client, Milos Sarcev. So Milos does a great job with him.
Milos is anal about the posing. Why is his client so fucking disastrous?
Well, I just don't think, I'm not sure that they've ever been able to see each other in person because of all the visa issues. I think they had a lot of trouble with that. So Milos could just get some, you know, real life time with Behrooz and some time changing the way he poses.
Yeah, and just related to the visa issue, because this again highlights the IFBB's disastrous lack of organization. For all their money and for all their mafia connections and whatnot, you know, they've even got access to the highest levels of government, I'm sure, with people like Arnold, who has, you know, fingers in those political pies. But the IFBB seriously needs to get together a fucking dedicated legal team that sort out all these visa exemptions and start getting some of these lesser known guys in the ranks, because money talks all languages at the end of the day, and they've definitely got more than the huge overflowing coppers at their reserve if they ever wanted to employ it to make that happen.
I mean, look, Jordan, Hani Rambod can get Hadi Shupan in, who's from Iran, right? I mean, there is solutions. No problems, only solutions. If you're not part of the solution, you are the problem. And the problem here is the IFBB. I mean, they should be bending over backwards to get Behrooz in, and Milos has been campaigning for quite a while. But I don't know that Milos has got any tout, but obviously Hani's, he must have some sort of...
Well, Hani himself is Persian, right? I think he's...
Yeah, he can speak lots of different languages, so
isn't he Arabic or something? So he probably has, you know. But you think even on their side that they would have the money men and the power brokers that could orchestrate some of these visa exemptions for the guys, you know, if they're putting so much national support behind, because I know that in Iran, you know, they're fanatically supportive of their bodybuilders.
Yeah,
these guys not all that.
There's no talk poppy in Iran, is there? Isn't that wonderful the way they support, you know, success and revere success, like the Americans do. Fortunately, poor old Australia, we just like to drag people down too quick. But at least Iran's good like that with their athletes. But,
So if this Behrooz guy could crack, say he could get like a last minute introduction to the Olympia, where does he sit in the top 6?
I'm not sure about top 6. I think he's got his pay his dues at the Olympia stage. Maybe he's still got a lot of potential. He still needs to sort of fill out the legs just a little bit. But he's top 10. He's a top 10 Olympian, and the lineups the last few years have been pretty stacked. So I think it would be great to see him in the lineup. And Milos knows that he could take some scalps and just wants him in there. So. But it was a good battle between him and Nathan Dash. And Nathan Dash made his comeback to the stage. Nathan tore both his biceps only a few years ago. So Nathan looked good. I thought his waist was probably a bit bigger than what it was before, even though he was in condition. But Nathan's got he's got a long torso with really high lats, which looks good from the front. When you do that front lat spread and you've got high lats from the front, it sort of looks okay. But then when they turn around, it sort of gets exposed a little bit. Whereas Behrooz he hasn't got any of those sorts of issues. But so at the end of the day, I think it was very close between the two guys. They're both in good condition, but Behrooz is more aesthetic and did well. But if he could improve his posing, that could look getting closer to the top 6 in the Olympia for sure.
Yeah. Next topic, Rich Piana. We wanted to visit the great man himself because it's almost coming up to the 7th year anniversary since Rich's passing. There's a great quote from Hunter S. Thompson from his book Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas that I just wanted to share because I thought it perfectly summarizes the character or the caricature that was Rich Piana and the impact that he made. And this is how it reads. It says, "There he goes, one of God's own prototypes, a high-powered mutant of some kind, never even considered for mass production, too weird to live and too rare to die." I think that just summarizes the life and influence and impact of Rich Piana on our sport. And I think probably ever since Arnold, there has never been a person who has been so likable, so charismatic, or made such an impact in the sport the way that Rich Piana did. What do you think?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I was always a big fan of Rich. And the other word that we can use is positive.
He had an infectious, positive mindset. That was one of the things that I sort of thought. It was infectious.
He was very infectious. He was very, very alluring, very charismatic. I found myself watching his DVDs, not his DVDs, his YouTube videos, bedtime story. I'd be lying in bed at 11 o'clock at night, just switching off, smile and stuff. But it was really, really just a lot of fun to listen to them.
Yeah, well, one of the day series. It not impacted obviously your nights, but always my mornings, because that was around about the time that I was competing. And I start my morning every day with "good fucking morning," sharing his eccentric, compelling, genuine, openly honest, just fucking unintentionally hilarious life. And he was a flawed character with perfect for any means.
That's right.
But he was just so candid and honest about with everything, and just inspirational at the end of the day, because you got to remember the context of YouTube at the time. It was like back in the early 2010s, and everyone was a bullshit artist. It hadn't developed and exploded like it has today with the fitness scene. But you had all these people trying to peddle their fart powders and make all these lies. There was nobody being honest, but Rich Piana was the first to be so candid about his drug use and saying exactly what was on his mind and being authentic and relatable, that you couldn't help but like him and watch him at the end of the day. It was like a slow-moving car crash, to use that phrase.
Always said watching Rich was like it, and being allured to his content was like the moth to a flame. That analogy there, he really was. There's a lot of things that he did that I wouldn't do in my own personal life, but because his mindset was so positive and he was so infectious, as you say, you just couldn't help but watch. Even though we knew that.
It's a statement coming from you, because I know that anybody that kind of involves themselves on the recreational drug use side of things, you tend to write them off and you won't engage with their content. Rich was obviously knee deep or neck deep side of it. I still remember when
I knew that, it didn't bother me. I just I just loved his attitude. It was fantastic.
I still remember when he was having that argument because he found out that Sarah was fucking him over or cheating. And
green car.
listened to that the other day, and while he's giving her this huge verbal tirade in the car, and she's, shedding these crocodile tears of fake sadness in the background, he stops to do a drug deal and sells some guy. I just thought that was so hilarious that he was able to switch it up so quickly and just be like, oh yeah, man, here's 2 boxes of Anabar, and that's the same price as last time. And that was sort of funny. But we also had, like, we could probably turn this into a full 1 hour video by itself, but some like our top tips from Rich Piana, just pay homage to the man. Just like very quickly, give us your takeaways from Rich's content there.
Well, I like some of his training tips. He'd call it my 2 cents, and he had some good ones there. Behind the back shrugs was a beauty. The bar behind the back in the Smith machine. Power cleans, an old school forgotten exercise, but not from the floor. Power cleans from your waist with the bar. So I thought that was a beauty, that one. And then these cable bicep curls where you got the cable machine behind you while you're sort of on an incline bench, and then you're curling the handles forward. That was really good. And the vacuums, honestly, that vacuums YouTube video that he did was brilliant. And we now know that people aren't training their transverse abdominis, and vacuums are a way to do that, as well as your regular abdominal training. So it's a way to be able to try to keep control of your waist while you're on stage, to pull that waist in. And I think Rich was early. Yeah, he was before his time. So that was brilliant. And of course, for me, I've always been I can't stand those stringer tank tops in the gym. So I used to love his take on no nipples. There was a 1 minute 42-second video that he put up where he just says no other fucking nipples, in the gym. And so
You hate the nipples, don't you?
Oh, I can't stand those stringers. So I like the. In fact, I actually bought one of these 5%er. Those wife beater singlets with the ribbed, more full fitting singlets. I actually bought one of those and wore it for years. I loved it. It was a really good fit, nice tight fit, but no nipples hanging out.
I just like the way that he also used to take his time to meet everybody that was in the line at the expo. And he would stay until the first person and the last person were at that expo. Well after everyone had switched off the lights and gone home and packed it up for the day, he was still there shaking hands and having legitimately good conversations. We both met him as well when we went to Vegas. Time. Yeah. Oh, share my sorry.
Yeah, no, share yours for sure.
Things that I liked because Rich was this perfect blend of the old school bro science, but also colliding with the modern world of social media. So I like this thing about feeder workouts, the arms and shoulders, because those muscles, have a quick recovery, and those things definitely do work. And likewise, sometimes just some of the crazy shit that he would do, like his 8-hour arm workouts. And I know that a lot of people shit on that, sort of saying it was a meme, but sometimes you've got to do these crazy things to shock the body part into growth. On the mental side of things, the whole 5% inner strength, work ethic, and commitment that he had, because he said you really need to have a 5% mentality. Because the 95% of the people won't go all out, won't have pre-workout, and at the day won't get anywhere. But Rich, I think he lived life on his terms, and say what you want that he was a moron with all the drugs and the PVA stuffed in the arms and the Synthol and everything else, but that was the look that he wanted to achieve, and he will be forever remembered regardless of what he did.
Yeah, no, just in regards to your expo comment, I mean, I've seen him at the Arnold Australia Expo several times. And he was first there, last to leave, but he stood up all day. A lot of the pros would just be sat down in their sponsors booth. They wouldn't even step. Phil Heath was there for 2 hours, sat down. Whereas,
well, look at your buddy Nick Walker. He won't even fucking turn up. So,
So, but Rich, he would engage with you. You could see he was listening to what you were saying. Being a teacher for so many years, you can sort of tell when someone's listening or not listening. And he was just a fantastic guy, but first there, last to leave, and stood up the whole time. He must have been knackered, but he was eating carbs the whole day, didn't he? He was big on that, and he was eating those crispy cereal bars to try to sort of maintain his pump.
I mean, his diet was a train wreck. We definitely don't want to let my Ben and Jerry's. That probably definitely contributed to his demise.
Oh, sure.
Recreation.
Like I say, I don't agree with any of the nutrition or the Synthol or anything. It's just that moth to a flame. I couldn't help but
couple of other
That's very
tips that I
sad.
also liked was the fact that your dick should hang lower than your balls. I think that was a meme in itself, but it's definitely very true. You don't want your balls hanging down like that.
He had a female with him on that particular video, and he asked her, "What do you think?"
A bit strange if he had a male with him.
Funny.
But I also sort of think that's probably one of the biggest lessons in life. Was that he's a bit of a cautionary tale as well. So you got to be careful of how you approach this whole bodybuilding or social media thing, because at the end of the day, it can destroy you. And like, he did live life on his terms, and he enjoyed the fruits of his labors and the riches that it brought him. But at the end of the day, I don't want to die when I'm 47. Well, I've passed that age now, but you know, I'm here for a good time and a long time. And it's really tragic to have to go to the grave with all that money and all that fame. You know,
There was a bit of a shock to me when he passed. So, yeah, it was
rest in peace, big guy. You know,
yeah, definitely R.I.P. Rich.
yeah, I'll get around to making a video of him sometime, but I just want to come at things from a different angle. I've got the whole kind of thought in mind where, you know, that movie American Psycho.
Yes.
Yeah, I kind of want to align it with Rich was kind of like this generation's, or the generation just past version of American Psycho. So I kind of want to align it, come at it from a different angle rather than do one of the boring Wikipedia documentary style videos some of these fucking other AI channels are doing. Let's move on to another one hitting social media fame hungry at the moment. And this was a weird fucking video, and I suppose it's one that we can end our discussion with today. Is Larry Wheels' relapse into steroids?
Last year, I made a video saying I stopped steroids. And I had, as of 3 months ago, relapsed and gone back on a full steroid cycle. Now, the reason why I stopped in the first place, for those who didn't watch the video, is to stop compromising my health, to ensure that I can have a happy, healthy marriage with my wife, and to focus more on my business, being PR and now the gym.
Video, what a fucking weird title. And he's kind of a bit of a strange cat, this Larry Wheels. I don't really know how to take him. I've never been a big fan of his content, always been very impressed and respectful of his strength. And also his way to kind of like, he's tried a few different things. He's tried the bodybuilding, he's tried the arm wrestling, he's tried strongman. So I've liked how he's kind of justified himself. But I don't like the impetus for a lot of the reasons why he's doing this. And he goes back to, again, a discussion with Sam Sulek at the beginning of why I thought that I didn't like this kid. Is exactly the reasons why I dislike people like Larry Wheels. Because, you know, he's doing everything for the clout, the clicks, the eyeballs, and the attention span. And he talks about his addiction to steroids. Fuck it, steroids aren't addictive unless you're addicted to the psychological effects of the attention that they bring you. And in your case, the dollars that you're chasing.
Look, I've always been a bit concerned with Larry. I've watched some of his YouTube videos when he's had like a guest with him, and they'd be doing some crazy lift, and then that guest gets injured. You know, he's had a few interesting injuries, like where it's very cringeworthy to watch. But his whole thing about back on a full cycle, he's relapsed to steroids. The fact that he was back on a full cycle, taking everything in the kitchen thing, and then competing in bodybuilding, then finding that he came second and didn't get his pro card, so that was off-putting for him, obviously. So he's basically come full circle now, and he's decided to pull the pin on bodybuilding, and he doesn't want to take anything anymore to extremes. So it's like, okay, so what are you going to do with yourself? But at the same time, he's still on TRT, and he's only 29. So he talks about his relapse, and then he's coming good. And coming good is actually TRT at 29. So I thought, well, that's interesting.
So yeah, basically the idea of the whole video in January was got back on steroids to compete in bodybuilding, because he had the view that he wanted to win his pro card, get more eyeballs back onto his content, because he had noticed this dip in his public relations recently, his social media presence. And long story short, he wanted to get more money. But this whole shtick about wanting to compete in bodybuilding to draw more eyeballs and then quitting it at the last moment,
That's right.
is actually being surpassed by the sad irony that he's actually gotten more attention now from the shitbait vid that he's made about quitting steroids and quitting bodybuilding. But like I said, the intentions and the underlying motives is what rubs me the wrong ways, because right off the bat, when he said he relapsed, I thought he had gone back to his masturbation addiction that he talked about years ago, his porn addiction and the cam girls that he was wasting his entire fucking fortune on. And Larry's true addiction is with attention and money at the end of the day. I'm shocked the guy's only 29. He looks like he's in his mid fucking 40s for starters.
Yeah, I was
But
surprised at that.
he had this really weird and funny quote in the video that maybe the editors didn't pick up, or maybe he's just not smart enough to pick up himself. But it basically underlies the whole crazy contradiction in terms. He goes, I was compromising my health, my integrity, my trust with my audience, my future, harming my relationship, but more importantly, my business. I thought, I had to laugh out loud because I thought, I'm really glad to see you've got your priorities straight there, Larry, because he talked about his health, his relationship, but most importantly, but he was scared to harm his business and his bottom line at the end of the day.
He mentioned that he just wants to focus now on PR. PR for his own products, his new weight training belt, and PR of others. So he wants to try to bring others back onto his channel and try to sort of uplift them, like Andrew Jack. I think he must have an association or affiliation with Andrew Jack for a while. So it was almost like a plea video for anyone out there that wants to come on my channel. I'm going to lift you up and turn you into a success. And at the same time, I'm going to come along for the ride.
Yeah, how the fuck is he going to do that if he's worried about by himself? He's not even achieving the success that he wants. You've got 2.5 million viewers or audience members. That should be enough to get yourself where you want to go. You don't need to leverage anybody else. He talks about giving back, but that's just code for using others to get ahead as well. So I don't know. I'm a little bit.
I know it's a bit dubious, and I'm a little bit worried that, and if anyone does do a bit of a workout with him and they lift some crazy weights, that they're going to get hurt. Larry never gets hurt. Someone else is going to get hurt.
Yeah, well, it's their stupidity at the end of the day. I have
I
no
know.
risk and engage in that sort of fucking tomfoolery again, just for attention and clicks. But these are the sort of characters that I just. You could probably argue that Rich Piana did the same, sort of theatrics to get eyeballs and attention. But at least Rich was coming at more like as a pioneer and from a good place, whereas I don't think Larry Wheels. He's married to a woman now who maybe is spending more recklessly than the money can come in, but she hasn't even changed her last name. If you check out her social media, there's no pictures of them together or their wedding or their marriage. No, she hasn't changed her name, so maybe Larry doesn't have it together in his private life at the end of the day. And
No, I think you're right. He seems very confused.
I think a lot of these guys, their problem is that their identity is tied up in this game, particularly when it pertains to social media, and they start to get very insecure and they panic when they see the numbers and the engagement back down. And of course, when you dip into steroids, basically just feeds into this merry-go-round of having to take more, do more, you can get guests on or whatever else that they think is going to drive their algorithm just to get their social media. Like when the best example that I could probably think of is some of these older school guys like Dorian, that when it was over, okay, they went through a period of depression and adaptation, but their whole identity wasn't wrapped up and they were able to move on to other things aside building. And then I think about like some of these guys like Larry Wheels, whose whole shtick is invested in this, then when it's over, and it will be over very soon because people will get sick of it. What is he going to do when they move on to the next big thing?
That's right. And, a lot of these videos were about some crazy lifts, but obviously there's an expiry date on that, isn't there? I mean, he's already tore his bicep from the top, not the bottom, but he's already had a bicep tear. So I think he's realized that he can't keep doing these crazy lifts now.
Yeah, these guys got to figure it out for themselves at the end of the day, or maybe reach out to the guys that have been through it before, like Dorian, etc., and ask for some advice and tips where the real benefits of coaching come in, drawing on the experience pools of others. But it's been a great chat with your good self again. Enjoy your time over there in the east of Melbourne.
Hopefully it's going to be a little bit more sun next week.